That's not what we started to teach, which was that every baby is, I don't know, let's not even put it on the birth certificate. That's what they wanted.
Were we teaching that?
Yes, we
When
were.
were we teaching that?
Teaching it. It was a law here in California. See,
To teach what?
Don't put on the birth certificate. We'll see.
Bill Maher is now laying out, in plain terms, why he says he can no longer align himself with the left. And the reasons he gives are more blunt than many people expected. While he's openly criticized progressives for years, few thought he'd draw such a clear line in the sand. This time, he isn't hedging his words. According to Maher, the left has drifted away from clear thinking, and unless it changes direction soon, it risks losing what influence it still has. Prepare yourself. His assessment pulls no punches.
To admit this country is not as mature as it thinks it is. We elected Obama, and clearly the country freaked out. We're still living in that freak out. We are not as progressed and evolved and intelligent as we think we are because we keep freaking out about this stuff.
Well,
you know?
The left freak out too. The left freaked out about a lot of too.
What did they freak out about?
Gender, race, parenthood, schools, homelessness, crime, the border, education. Like we stopped being a scientific people.
Maher begins by running through a long list of frustrations that led him to this breaking point, but one argument stands out above the rest. He claims the left has abandoned science. Whether people agree or not, Maher says it's becoming harder to overlook moments where biological facts are dismissed or where identity is treated as something that can be instantly altered by declaration alone. At that stage, he argues it's difficult to claim logic is still guiding the conversation. Eventually, he says honesty requires calling it what he sees it as, a denial of foundational scientific understanding.
It's not scientific.
But the left certainly stayed scientific.
No, they didn't.
Why not?
Because they think gender that they went way too far with. That's not scientific.
At this point, Maher makes it clear he believes the left's intense focus on gender identity played a significant role in their election defeat. In his view, the issue was pushed so far beyond everyday reasoning that it entered territory most Americans never requested and never endorsed. Instead of concentrating on bread and butter concerns like jobs, safety, and schools, the left devoted enormous energy to redefining biological language and demanding universal agreement. Maher argues this approach didn't just alienate moderates, it actively drove voters away. By elevating a narrow ideological debate into a national litmus test, he says the left essentially set itself up to lose. The election results, in his view, confirmed that outcome.
It's not what we started to teach, which was that every baby is, I don't know, let's not even put it on the birth certificate. That's what they wanted.
Were we teaching that?
Yes, we
When
were.
were we teaching that?
Teaching it. It was a law here in California. See,
To teach what?
Don't put on the birth certificate. We'll see. Now, we've passed that period now.
I'm sorry, I don't remember that. I mean,
I know, because it doesn't get in the blue sky bubble.
Wait a minute, I'm not just on blue sky.
I really think that's a lot of it, is that some of this stuff doesn't get in to everybody's media.
Now, Maher points out what he sees as a sudden reversal. Many on the left appear to be distancing themselves from positions they once defended with absolute certainty. The same people who insisted these ideas were unquestionable truths now act as if those statements were never made, as though digital records and public memory don't exist. But anyone who followed the debate knows otherwise. Only a few years ago, questioning gender ideology was treated as unacceptable, even immoral. It was framed as a moral emergency. Now, as public resistance grows and political consequences mount, Maher says those same voices are quietly retreating from the stances they once loudly promoted.
Capitalist South Korea at night from space. Here's socialist North Korea. Yeah. In 1990, Venezuela was wealthier than Poland. But then Poland, finally free of Soviet-style economics, went all in on capitalism. And now their economy is as big as Japan. And people there have high wages, low inflation, cars, vacations, homes. Meanwhile, Venezuela traded capitalism for Hugo Chavez's socialism for the 21st century, which turned out to be like socialism in the last century or any century. mess.
Another breaking point for Maher, he says, is the left's growing fascination with socialism. He argues that socialism isn't merely flawed on paper, but historically disastrous in practice. According to Maher, embracing it doesn't energize the Democratic Party or move it forward. Instead, it weighs the party down and erases whatever momentum it still has. He believes Americans have seen enough global examples to know where socialist systems often lead, and most voters aren't eager to risk their future on that path. Maher argues the left is promoting an ideology the public fundamentally distrusts, and rather than reconsidering after backlash, they push harder. To him, that guarantees political failure.
It turned one of Latin America's richest countries into one of its poorest. Low wages, high inflation, shortages, outages, 8 million people fleeing. If you think New York can somehow reinvent this wheel, you're in for a rude awakening.
Maher also criticizes what he sees happening in New York, where leaders appear convinced they can reinvent socialism and make it work this time. They present it as a refined, improved version of the ideology, supposedly free of the flaws that doomed past attempts. But Maher remains unconvinced. He argues the state is walking directly into the same historical trap others have fallen into repeatedly. In his view, no matter how attractively it's packaged, socialism leads to the same outcomes: financial pressure, expanded government control, and gradual loss of personal freedom. New York, he says, isn't making history, it's reliving it, and the conclusion is already well known.
For 66 years, Playboy magazine was also a fact of American life. Sears sold your father a mattress, and Playboy was what he hid under it. It was a surefire product. Pictures of and then 25 cartoons about Santa Claus. Plus real journalism. You could read an interview with Carter while enjoying photos of Bush. But then it started messing around with the formula. Like the Democratic Party, Playboy decided they didn't need straight men anymore.
Here, Maher places responsibility for what he calls the woke phenomenon squarely on the Democratic Party. He argues the party lost sight of the everyday concerns of its base, such as employment, safety, affordability, and stability. Instead, it plunged into ideological disputes most Americans never prioritized. Rather than focusing on practical policy improvements, Democrats elevated gender identity debates to the center of their platform. Maher says this obsession didn't remain confined to politics. It spread throughout culture, influencing media, institutions, and brands. He points to Playboy as an example, describing how it shifted away from its original identity toward messaging aligned with progressive activism. To Maher, this shift illustrates how far the party has drifted from its roots by elevating fringe causes over daily realities.
Put transgender women and gay men on the cover, and predictably sales, like their subscribers, collapsed. The staff began using terms like intersectionality, positivity, and privileging, and in response, Playboy readers used terms like no thanks, get the out of here, and bye-bye. At one point, Playboy, yes, Playboy, even dropped the which is like cigar aficionado announcing, we're getting rid of the cigars. It went from entertainment for men to re-education for nobody, and enlightened their way to unpopularity. Meanwhile, Kim Kardashian posed for another magazine and broke the internet with her ass.
Maher argues the consequences weren't limited to politics. Institutions and corporations that rushed to embrace woke trends often paid a heavy price. What started as a cultural statement turned into a financial setback for many well-known brands. Companies that once dominated their markets alienated loyal customers and weakened the identities that made them successful. In some cases, the fallout was immediate. Sales dropped, stock values declined, and longtime supporters walked away. Playboy lost much of its core audience after its rebrand. Budweiser faced massive backlash following controversial messaging. Even Sears, once a retail powerhouse, collapsed after losing focus on its core mission. Maher believes these companies didn't just make minor errors. They fundamentally misunderstood their customers, and the market responded accordingly.
Sometimes you gotta give the people what they want. But for some weird reason, it's apparently tempting for some people to not do that, because even Cracker Barrel recently decided that they felt a little embarrassed that it was so popular with bumpkins who salivate at the sight of an old wagon wheel screwed to the wall. So they changed it to this, which got them no new customers while pissing off the old ones. It reminded me of when Chuck Schumer said in 2016 that for every blue-collar Democrat we lose in Western Pennsylvania, we're going to pick up 2 moderate Republicans in the suburbs of Philly, Ohio, Illinois, and Wisconsin. Yeah, how'd that work out?
Maher contrasts this with Donald Trump's campaign approach. While Trump focused on clear positions related to the economy, border security, and employment, the left emphasized a very different set of priorities. Instead of addressing issues affecting most households, they concentrated on cultural education around gender identity and debates over transgender participation in sports. Maher argues these topics resonated with only a small segment of voters, while most Americans were concerned about income, crime, and national stability. He believes this gap in priorities significantly shaped the election outcome. By centering abstract cultural arguments and sidelining core issues, the left gave Trump a decisive edge. The result shocked progressives and forced them to confront why their message failed to connect. For Maher, it's a clear lesson about losing touch with everyday reality.
At least Cracker Barrel had the sense to immediately say, "Oh, sorry," and put the sling blades back on the wall. Democrats don't seem to be doing that. They still seem to want to be that upscale store that impresses celebrities. Anybody remember Barney's? It was this store in New York that started in the 1920s, as a discount clothing joint on unfashionable, grimy 7th Avenue, a place where their customers, the working man, could get a decent suit at a very reasonable price. I remember going there in 1993 to get my wardrobe for a new show Comedy Central was launching called Politically Incorrect.
Maher concludes by saying the Democratic National Committee should have taken its losses seriously and adjusted course. Instead, he believes the party responded by doubling down on the same strategies that costed elections. He finds that response puzzling. How does a party rejected for overemphasizing cultural ideology decide the solution is to push even further, including embracing socialism? To Maher, that defies political common sense. Rather than rebuilding trust with voters, the party appears to be moving even further away from them. He argues this reflects a deeper disconnect from the concerns of ordinary Americans. While people worry about jobs, prices, and security, party leadership seems focused on ideological experiments with limited appeal. Maher warns that without a shift toward practical solutions, the left risks repeating its mistakes. He closes with a stark message: unless priorities change, future losses are likely. And that brings us to the end of today's video. If you found it helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.